Welcome to Screen Smart. I'm your host, April Whiting, a certified screen safety educator. On this episode, you will learn everything you need to know to keep your kids safe online and on their devices. Every year, thousands of people are killed because of distracted drivers. And if you live in Arizona, a new law just went into effect that prohibits phone use while driving. Here to tell us more about the new law is Commander Jeff McNeil of the Show Low Police Department. Welcome, Commander McNeil.
Thank you, April. Good morning.
Thank you for coming. So let's talk about this new law. Give us the rundown of what it is and what we need to know.
All right. So in basic terms, it's the distracted driving law, and it's actually not that new. It came out in April of 2019. The governor, when he signed that into law, gave the folks of Arizona 18 months to get adapted to it. But basically, in short, it says you cannot use your cell phone while driving. Can't dial a phone number, can't look at a text, can't do anything, can't be in your hands. And the short version I tell people when I'm out there doing traffic is basically, if the wheels are in motion, you cannot have it in your hand. It has to be Bluetooth, hands-free device.
Okay, I like that. So if the wheels are in motion, so you can't hold a phone up to your ear anymore and talk.
No.
While you're driving.
No.
That will get you a ticket.
That will get you stopped, yes. So the law you're talking about actually, as far as citations, came into effect January 1st.
Okay.
So that 18-month grace period is over, and now you can be cited for it.
Gotcha. So Arizona gave us a long time to get used to this.
Correct.
Okay. And so, but then starting January 1st, you were able to start writing citations
Correct.
for it. Okay. And so what's the fine? What's the ticket?
Okay. The fine for a first offense starts at $75, depending on the court, and can run up to $150.
Okay.
And then each violation after that, it increases. So your second violation starts at $150 and can go up to $250.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll start cutting down on the people you see driving down the road.
Right.
And this number talking on their phone.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of people think that if they put it on speaker and they hold it like this, that they're fine, but that will get them a ticket.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is diverting their attention.
Right. Distracted driver.
Correct.
Okay. So because, I mean, I'm sure you see it all the time. I see it all the time. People texting and driving. I will pass them and they never look up. They're down on their phone.
Right.
And I've heard statistically that it's as dangerous as drunk driving.
It can actually, I was going to mention that, it can actually look just like that. So it does look like impaired driving. I've seen, I pulled one over a couple days ago that he had traveled in the left-hand turn lane probably by a quarter of his vehicle for probably 60, 80 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because he was using his phone.
So I saw he was on his phone when I turned around, and then I got behind him. I was watching his driving behavior. So.
Wow. And it took him a while to notice.
And he didn't even realize that he crossed the road. So when we had that conversation, so.
Wow.
That's the crazy thing that people don't understand. So how long does it take to look at a text? You know.
Can take a while.
if it's a small paragraph text, 1 to 2 seconds, is that safe to say? So most of our people down the Deuce clubs that we stop for speeding are driving 45 miles plus. It's a 35-mile-an-hour zone. So let's just go 40 miles an hour. If you divert your attention for 1 second, you will travel 60 feet.
Wow.
So if you take 2 to 3 seconds, 180 feet. Now the problem that people don't realize is that if something popped out, you know, when I was a kid, we used to play in the streets, be playing baseball, and we'd yell car and get out of the road.
Right.
So imagine that child whose ball rolls out of the yard and into the street and takes off running.
Yeah.
And that 2 seconds you took your eyes off the road, you don't realize that. And the problem is, once we see a problem coming, our brain has to react to it and tell our foot to push on the brake. So if we've got 3 seconds off, that's 180 feet. That's is that 60 yards? So think of it in football terms, 60 yards that you've traveled with your eyes off the road. So that's why they put that law in effect, and people have equated for it. And I know over the years I had friends that worked at the state legislature that said, why isn't this in the law? Because they had to debate for a long time of, what are we going to do? is eating distracted driving. Well, it can be, but it's the devices. And now we have basically all the kids in school now. You know, each year the kids are getting phones at second grade, third grade, and you know this.
Yeah.
But now when technology started getting really good, those kids are now adults in their 20s and early 30s. And having raised 2 children of my own that are adults, you know, they couldn't live without their phone. You'd be sitting there at the dinner table. So they can't, we're trying to educate them to, is it worth it? Is it worth it? You know, you asked the other day when we were prepping for this, have we seen accidents that we can attribute to cell phone use? It's really kind of hard to do that. We ask those questions. I know we had a fatality probably 14 months ago that we can almost attribute it to that, but we can't be 100% sure. The gentleman crossed the center line. There was no traffic. There was no reason for him to cross the line. His phone was found at his feet. We later learned in talking to others that he had been texting back and forth out there on 77. So tragic accident, didn't have to happen. Luckily, the folks in the other car when they went head on didn't survive or didn't have serious injuries.
Well, that's good. Oh, that's so scary, because I also know that when you look at your phone and that dopamine that it gives your brain can suck you in so fast to where you forget where you are. You can forget you are driving while you're using your phone. And so I know a lot of parents, you know, we all tell our kids don't text and drive, but I think that teenagers sometimes feel like they're invincible. So you have 2 kids of your own. How do we convey to them the seriousness of this?
Well, we at the police department have tried in the past. I mean, obviously 2020 was an awesome year.
So good.
But we try to have recreate some sort of mock accident at the high school to get them to understand. It's kind of hard to do that. We've always used alcohol, but we can use the texting part. And it drives it home with some. Some people just look at it as an hour to get out of class. But, you know, we try our best to, if we reach one person, that's a good thing. You want to reach them all and say, hey, is it really worth it? And I don't know how we simulate that. Brings up a valid question. How can we do that?
Right.
You know, we have driving simulators in law enforcement that we can get with DPS for our officers to become better drivers. Maybe there's somebody can develop technology out there that they put them in a simulator that they do a text and show what happens when they take their foot off or how far they travel.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you in the hot seat for just a second. What is your opinion on the new driving law? Are you glad to see it?
Are you asking how many tickets I've written already?
I mean, if you would like to share.
I'm absolutely excited about it.
Yeah.
And it's literally that. It's not about the citation. It's not about giving a ticket. It's not about a fine. It's about saving people's lives. I've been in this job for 23 years. I've been on accident scenes where people, innocent drivers were killed by drunk drivers. I've been on those where, you know, as I said, suspected of driving. The other people who are being responsible are usually the victims in this.
Right.
They were not impaired in any way or distracted, and they usually are the ones that end up losing their lives. And that's where I'm at. I'm about vehicle safety. It's not about the citations, but people just don't understand how many warnings we've written a ton of warnings over the past 18 months.
Right.
And it's still, go sit on the side of the road. Sit in our police department, sit up on a little hill on the Deuce of Clubs and count how many cars and people are on their phones. I had a gentleman FaceTiming. I stopped him the other time. He was FaceTiming. I said, you're actually FaceTiming? And his phone was down lower because I'm looking at him and his eyes are just like this. And so I turn around, have a conversation. I said, were you on your phone? He's like, yeah. He's like, but I didn't have it in my hands. And he's like, I said, well, how were you talking? He's like, FaceTiming. I'm like, you're FaceTiming with, so your attention is even worse diverted as opposed to holding it up here and talking on your phone.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely a big issue that we all need to do so much better with. I've heard tips of, if you're tempted, put your phone in your back seat, put it in the console so it makes it harder to get to. We've all just got to do better, for sure.
Right. And it's a wonderful tool. I mean, to be able to get on the internet and ask Siri this or ask, Google this and have answers at your fingertip. Great tool. Not when you're behind the wheel of a vehicle. And I'll be honest, I try to guilt people that, you've got 2 kids back there and you're on your phone, really?
Yeah.
They have no choice. And so, that conversation it's usually the innocents that get injured or killed. So,
right.
For the Show Low Police Department, it's about motor vehicle safety. We want people who come to visit here. We want our citizens to be safe. Don't use your cell phones because we're going to catch you.
Yeah. Well, I think that this law is going to save a lot of lives. And thank you for what you guys do to help keep us all safe in our community. And thanks for informing us on the new law. So we appreciate you being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back to talk more about how to keep your kids safe online. Welcome back to Screen Smart. Let's take a look at the technology and the resources that you need this year to keep your kids safe online. The first thing that we're going to talk about is routers. There's a couple of really great routers on the market right now that can really help protect your kids at home on the internet. The first router is called a Griffin Router. You can find it on Amazon. They run anywhere from $99 to $200. It's an amazing device. It's an actual router that you hook up in your home. It filters out more than I've seen anything else do. So it really does a good job of filtering out the yuck and the things that you don't want your kids looking at. And you can put it on certain devices and not on others. Like if you work from home and you want your computer to not be as locked down, you can choose your filter level for it. It's an amazing device, so that's called a Griffin Router. But if you don't want to buy a whole new router, if you like the router that you have, there is something called Clean Browsing. You can find it on cleanbrowsing.org, and that is something that can be linked to your current router. It's pretty user-friendly. It's also a really good filter. The thing that I like about the Griffin Router is that you can control screen time, your filter levels. It's my recommendation. It's the best that I've seen. So those are the routers. Those are my 2 recommendations. And next, let's talk about monitoring apps that you can put on actual devices, because of course our kids aren't always home. Maybe they are more so right now, but so these monitoring apps can be put on cell phones, computers, iPads. And so I have 2 favorites, and my number 1 favorite is Bark, B-A-R-K, and that is something that you download. It's a monitoring app. You can put it on your kids' devices and it links to your device. There's also something called Covenant Eyes. That's my second recommendation. That is really good for combating pornography. Let's talk about cell phones for a minute. As you know, I always say that your 8-year-old does not need a smartphone. Neither does my 8-year-old. So you need incremental trust with your kids. You need to start small. You don't give them the whole world all at once. There's something called a Gab cell phone. You've probably heard me talk about it in the past. It's my absolute favorite. It is a cell phone that looks like a smartphone, but there is no internet access. It's a great starter phone for kids. My 13-year-old and my 11-year-old both have Gab phones and they love them. You can still play music on them. There's a calculator, an alarm clock, camera. And so it's such a great starter phone. So I highly recommend that. Gab cell phones. I have a lot of parents ask me, when do you recommend, what age should I give my child their first smartphone? And that's different for every household, but I always tell parents whenever you are ready for them to view pornography, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's usually accidental, but there's just no way around it once you put a smartphone in their hands. And so let's talk about pornography for a minute. It is everywhere, and this is a discussion that for some parents feels awkward and hard, and they don't know where to start. There's a great resource. It's a book called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures that talks about pornography. And there's 2 separate editions. This is for younger kids. And I have actually read this to my 3-year-old. He's almost 4, but you have to start the conversation so young. So there's a teen edition. Actually, this is the junior edition. It's really appropriate for younger ages, and then the teen one goes a little bit deeper into it, but it's a great way to start the conversation of pornography. And this conversation should be ongoing. This is not a one and done conversation. This is something that should just be a normal conversation in your home, because a lot of kids really, really struggle with pornography. So there's that. And then my very favorite resource that I have found for everything that I talk about, cell phone safety, screen time, apps, there is a website called Protect Young Eyes, and there's also an app that they just came out with, Protect Young Eyes. And my friend Chris McKenna is the founder of Protect Young Eyes, and he is doing incredible work. The website has so many resources on it, and then the app just gives you an even deeper dive into things, and it is one of the best resources that I have found, and I have searched a lot. So that is one of my top recommendations. I really think that every parent needs to educate themselves, and if your kid is online, you should be online. And then there's other things. There's lots of YouTube videos that can help you figure out things. I always say that you need a central charging station in your home where all devices have a bedtime, and they go on that central charging station in mom and dad's room every night. There's a couple of books that I highly recommend. The first one is called Glow Kids. That takes a deep dive into screen time and what it's doing to our kids' brains. And then there's another book called Unselfie, and that's a great book. It looks like empathy and how it's lacking in our world today. So those are some really great resources. I am always available to answer any questions. You can find me on Instagram at the Screen Safe Project. I'm always happy to answer questions, and I have a lot of information over there. And the thing that I always tell parents, because you can do all the filters, you can do all the apps, and it will never keep out absolutely all the yuck. And so you are your child's best app. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.